right at the time. It times out or something. At least that's been kind of my experience before. Okay, great. All right, nice to see everybody. So we'll go ahead and start. I have to forewarn you that I prepared for today's session. I started preparing about 60 seconds ago. So I've spent the whole day just working on this poster and some fundraising things and stuff for this festival. And I'm just so, I feel like a Mukta Jeev now that it's, it's out of the way. So we'll see how it goes with Embankment and separation. Anyway, Gora Graganya Gana Go to Golodu Hadam Goranga Guda Tamagopyata Kolpa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachi Adile Kakola Kahe Premananda Hemona Goranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangira Namare Jai Jana Goranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Pranare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Bidhana Parama Pumarta Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Svikriyat Kripaya Juri Tadaiva Sambhaya Pidva Rishi Yustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatha Brajabala Vapahimam Vanchakalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I want to thank everybody very much for taking part today. Hare Krishna. So we're reading from, continuing our reading from this chapter, which is now chapter 8, which in previous editions, I think is chapter 5 of Embankment and Separation. It was chapter 8 in the edition which has not yet been published, but which all of you got to hear 3 new chapters of, which we've already gone over. So some of you are pretty familiar, I think, with this chapter. We went over the first part of it, and to just look back a little bit, Guru Maharaj was speaking about only bona fide chanters were admitted. And who was a bona fide chanter? And he's referring to the kirtan in Srivas Anga, the kirtan in the house of Srivas Thakur. And bona fide chanters are those persons who are chanting Prema Nam. And therefore, in other places, Guru Maharaj commented that it's not just Nam Sankirtan, but there's an adjective before it, Prema Nam Sankirtan. This Prema is so important. And he's raising this question, what is the necessity of this prema in connection with this Sankirtan? And so in our last session, we spoke something about the Brahma Gita in connection with Gaura Lila. The Brahma Gita is the 47th chapter of the 10th canto. It's where Uddhava is taking his message to the gopis and residents of Vrindavan. And we heard something about their response to that and their madness. So that's where we left off. And I want to continue from there. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the screen. And I'm going to start reading myself because I'm kind of thinking not to really exactly read, but to kind of read and summarize and go a little quick for the first section here. And Raghava Pandit, my dear godbrother, who was a person, he in Prem Prayojan, who originally worked on Embankment of Separation. Somebody's got some comment in chat. They gave these subheaders, which in this case is shameless. A very nice subheader. So he's speaking how the gopis were speaking to Uddhava and they just gave up all their shyness and shame. And Rupa Goswami speaks of this elsewhere. At the time when Akrura was taking Krishna away from Vrindavan, the same thing happened. And the gopis became unmadana, or divinely mad. And they just forgot about everything. And whereas before they would never show their love for Krishna, even before each other, even before gopis in the same group. And that's why in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, when the gopis are in the Gopi Gita, they're speaking this verse glorifying Giriraj, they say, Hantaya Madhura Bala Haridasa Varu Yad Rama Krishna. Why do they say Yad Rama Krishna? Well, there's different explanations of that. Our acharyas have commented that Ram there means Radhika Raman, ultimately Krishna. But it's given in a covered kind of way, so that the gopis, they're not directly showing, even to each other, even Lalita and Vishaka are not directly showing their love for Krishna to each other. So they're not showing that their love is exclusive for Krishna. They're saying, Yad Rama Krishna Charana Spadasa Pramoda. They're saying Yad Rama Krishna. But at the time when Akrura was taking Krishna away from Vrindavan, the gopis became unmadana. They became completely mad. And they just gave up all their shyness and they just came out in public showing their love for Krishna. So the gopis began to piteously cry. Guru Maharaj says, Ha Krishna, Ha Brajanath, Ha Gopi Vallabha Artinasana. O Krishna, O Master of Brajbhumi, O husband of the gopis, O destroyer of the distress of the gopis. They don't even know Uddhava. But in their divine madness, they're speaking in front of this stranger in such an intimate way. Raising their hands, they loudly called out, O Braja Pran, life of the residents of Braj, please come just once and see the condition of Braj Bhumi. From our very childhood, we developed love for you. We don't know anything but you. Yes, from our very childhood, we're all yours. Now we're drowning in the ocean of lamentation, a very deep, unfathomable ocean. Please, just once, come just once to Braj Bhumi and give us your lotus feet. They are our life. Please let us get our life. So, Shukadeva Goswami says that Chaktya Lokika. Lokika means common or something social. Chaktya means to give up. Chaktya Lokika, they've given up all shame. Guru Maharaj translates here. They've given up all concern about what everybody else is going to think. And the gopis are simply thinking of Krishna becoming mad. And Uddhava is seeing all these things. He was amazed and thought to himself, yes, by coming to Braj Bhumi, my life has become glorified. And then he begins to offer prayers to the gopis of Vrindavan. Bande Nanda Vijastriyam Padarenam Abhikshana Saha Yasam Harikatod Gitam Punati Bhuvanatrayam. He's offering his pranams to the lotus feet of the Braj gopis and desiring to get some of the padarena, some of the dust from their lotus feet. Guru Maharaj comments that when they sing Krishna Geet, Krishna Lila Kahani, all the nice pastimes of Krishna in Braj Bhumi, it purifies the three worlds. I want to take the dust from their lotus feet and put it on my head. I'll wear that as the ornament on my head. If I can have it, I'll think my life has become successful. And then my heart, which is dry with gyan, will be soaked with some mellow. I think so. So, as I mentioned before, what is the necessity? What is the reason why Guru Maharaj is explaining this? And as we commented, as we've been often commenting in our Tuesday morning classes on meeting in Kurukshetra, some acharyas have commented, have said that this 47th chapter of the 10th canto, the Brahma Gita, is the most important chapter of the Bhagavatam. Most important because this is where Gaura Lila becomes. This is the height of the ecstasy and separation of the Braj Gopikas. And this is mirrored by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira. We hear about that in the 14th chapter of the Antya Lila. We hear about it in many places in the 4th chapter of the Adi Lila. You also hear in some verses in the summary description of the Antya Lila, which Kaviraj Goswami gives in the Madhya Lila, about how Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira with Roy Ramananda and Sri Damodar Goswami is sharing the songs of Chandidas, Vidyapati, Bilvamangala Thakur, and others. And he's feeling the feelings of Radharani when at Uddhava Keri, when Uddhava came with this message. So that's our kind of introduction. And now we'd like to ask the very famous Mukunda if he could read something to us from this very strong bolt. Is that possible? But you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, Prabhu. Yes, I can try. While he was thinking in this way, Uddhava came to the Kunj where Radharani was lying. Radharani is the embodiment of Krishna Viraha. If separation from Krishna assumes a body, that is Radharani. Her 8 intimate Sakhis were all sitting around her. She was lying on the ground with her head on the lap of one of her girl companions. The whole body was cold, as if without life. If the life departs, the body becomes cold. Radharani was in such a dying condition, hardly able to speak. In a very feeble voice, Radharani said to her girl companion, "This separation from Gokul-pati Krishna is burning me like a high fever. The acute pang of separation creates a fever of 110 degrees. At 110 degrees, a man will die. Oh, Saki, such heat is more painful than very dreadful poison, Kalakuta Visa. It is more unbearable than the falling of the thunderbolt of Indra. At every moment, the acute pang of separation is piercing my heart, completely devastating my heart, O Saki. I cannot tolerate it anymore. I see no need to keep this body alive. I want to give it up immediately." Radharani remained silent for 1 or 2 moments. Then she said, "O Saki, death is not coming to me. There is a great obstacle preventing death from coming to me. A great hindrance has come in the way."
What is that hindrance? Rupa Goswami says in Lita Madhav. Go ahead.
Okay. Now this is described by Rupa Goswami in Lalita Madhava. I'll skip the Sanskrit. Radharani looked at the sky. A crow was flying overhead, going towards Mathura. All of a sudden, pointing out that crow, Radharani said, "Hey, crow, here, over here. Are you going to Mathura? Please hear me. Don't go anywhere else. go directly to Mathura. There you will find a king named Madhuranath. When you meet him, pay your obeisances and give him a message. Whatever message I give to you, deliver it to him. Do you understand? If a house is on fire, what is the first duty of the housemaster? His first duty is that there are domestic animals. They must be released. You may be burnt to ashes, but let them not be burnt. My body is like a house which is now on fire. And who has set fire to this house? Is that Krishna who has set this house on fire? Tell him, O crow, tell him, my life is like a domestic animal, prana pasu, but it cannot get out. And why not? This animal cannot get out because there's a very strong bolt on the door. So let Krishna come and unbolt it.
So the Lila Madhav is one of the precious jewels of our Gaudiya literature, written by Srimati Radharani's most intimate Manjari friend, Rupa Manjari, who came as Rupa Goswami, who is Sri Chaitanya Manobhishta, who understands the inner mind of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because Mahaprabhu's mind is the mind of Radha. And in this fourth act, which is where this verse comes from, Rupa Goswami is describing Radharani's feelings of separation after Krishna has gone to Mathura. So this is the feelings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he's experiencing in the Gambhira. And I'm just pointing this out because all of this we're going to find out in a very mind-blowing kind of way has some relevance for us. And Obana Biharani, you may recall some of our classes we gave before about the Kirtan of our Sampradaya. We call that we have some desire to write some book about it. This chapter in Embankment of Separation and some of the things Gurma spoke about this subject elsewhere is kind of the root of that concept that we had, that idea. So, Mukunda, why don't you go ahead? Or actually, maybe Krishna Balaram. Why don't we switch now? Then Radharani told the crow. Do you want to read Krishna Balaram, Prabhu?
Yeah. Then Radharani told the crow, if you want to know what is that bolt, I'll tell you. When Krishna left Rajabhumi, he told us, I'll come back, I will come back. That promise is a very strong bolt. Only with this hope we are surviving. But Krishna is not coming back. So let him come and unbolt it. This is Radharani's mood, feeling the acute pangs of separation from Krishna and dying. The whole house, her body is on fire, and the prana pashu, her life, which is like a domestic animal, is now burning. It could not get out, Radharani told the crow. Radharani told the crow, this is the very strong bolt on the door, so let him come and unbolt it. This means let him withdraw his words. Radharani fell silent for some time. Then looking at her Astasakis, she said, oh, my dear girl companions, immediately take me to the bank of the Yamuna. Put me underneath the Kadamba tree. That is, put me underneath the Kadamba tree there on the bank of the Yamuna, because Yamuna and the Kadamba tree are my best friends at the fag end of my life. Take some mud from the Yamuna and smear my whole body with it. After that, write Sham, 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 Sham on my whole body. Then take some Tulsi Manjaris and put them on his name, because the name of Sham and Sham himself are non-different. Nam, Nami, Abhina. All of you should then sit around me, and when my life breath goes out, you should all shout, Hari, Hari, Hari.
So this is a very, very esoteric subject matter. I can't think of anything more esoteric than what Guru Maharaj is speaking about here and what Rupa Goswami speaks about in the fourth act of Lalita Madhav, which culminates in that act with Radharani committing suicide and killing herself in separation from Krishna. Now, you may say, that's terrible. I don't want to hear about that. And certainly that has nothing to do with us, but it does. And that's the most inconceivable thing, how it has something to do with us. So what we're hearing here in this prayer, Guru Maharaj is speaking this little story. Radharani fell silent for some time in this paragraph, which is actually a translation of a song that Guru Maharaj oftentimes sang in Bengali, speaking this subject matter, and which appears elsewhere in the same Embankment of Separation. We're hearing the inner mood of Srimati Radharani at the height of her ecstasy. There's different types of separation. We spoke about that elaborately a few sessions ago. I'm not going to go over all that again, but the fourth type of separation is prabhas. Thank you. And prabhas means from a distance. So there's two types of prabhas, dura prabhas and sudura prabhas. Dura prabhas is when Krishna goes to Kamyavan or some place in Braj. But Sudura Prabhas is when Krishna goes to Mathura Dwarka. Rupa Goswami sometimes calls it Mathura Viraha or Dwarka Viraha. And the gopis in that situation, they don't know if they're ever going to see Krishna again. So there's dasami dasa, there's 10 different symptoms of separation, of this Prabhas separation. And there are different stages of ecstasy and separation. The final one of all of them is mrityu, or death. And this is the height of Radharani's ecstasy. So it's very esoteric, but let's not be lazy. There's a reason we should understand this, because if we don't understand this, we can't understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And if we don't understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's heart and mood, then we can't really understand the bhajan pranali of our sampradaya, the kirtan of our sampradaya. And this is really what Guru Maharaj is speaking about in this particular chapter. So we should be attentive to this. Krishna Balanprabhu, do you want to finish the next paragraph? Uddhava was just standing there.
Yeah, Uddhava was just standing there, gazing with dilated eyes and hearing everything Radharani was saying out of madness. Thus is Udgurna, various types of insane raving speech. Uddhava could understand. Yes, this must be Radhika. Many times I've heard about her from my friend Krishna. And when Krishna is asleep, with every breath that name comes out, Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. I've heard all these things in Mathura from my friend. This must definitely be Radhika.
Oh. Jiva Goswami in his Gopal Champu, he comments that there's letters going on, being exchanged, and this is some of our subject we've already covered, gosh, probably a year ago now, in our meeting in Kurukshetra Kathas, the exchange of letters that went on between Mathura and Vrindavan. And we're working on another book coming up soon called Dibyon Madha by Nandakishore Goswami. I was an associate of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, just as a little footnote you may find interesting. And we're going to hear in that book how about Radharani's Dibyon Madha, her divine madness and separation from Krishna, and how she was in a dying condition. And finally, the gopis, to try to revive Radharani, they said, oh, Krishna's here. And they put a picture of Krishna in front of her. And Radharani regained external consciousness, and they saved her life. But then she discovered it was just a picture. And then it became very serious. Now Radharani is really going to die. And at that time, Chandravali, Nandakishore Goswami says very wonderfully how Chandravali, who Rupa Goswami reveals in Lalita Madhav, is actually Radharani's cousin sister. And Chandravali, she said, don't worry, I'm going to go to Mathura and I'm going to speak to that Mathura Pati, that Mathura Nath. And I'm going to carry a message from you to him. And she left. And then moments later, Chandravali comes back and she said, I can't go just yet. I have to get something else. And the gopis asked, what is that? And they said, you remember that document that once, long before, when you defeated Krishna, and Krishna signed a document that he's the servitor of Srimati Radharani, he's become her slave, and he has no independence I want that document. I'm going to take that with me. And Chandravali takes that to Mathura. And it's a long story, which we'll be printing along with some commentary on it. And how Chandravali goes in a hidden place in the palace of Krishna in Mathura, and standing behind a column, she begins to call out, Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. And Krishna's sitting in by himself on the throne. And Chandravali was doing it just to see if Krishna remembered Vrindavan and Radharani. And certainly, indeed, he did. He began crying, and he called out, who is saying the name of my beloved? Show yourself. And then Chandravali came out, and it's a whole discussion. So anyway, here, I don't know if Guru Maharaj is referring to that or not, but Radharani is Uddhava was saying this thing. And I've heard all these things in Mathura from my friend, from Krishna. This must definitely be Radhika. So, Bani Biharni, would you like to read something now?
Sure. Image of emotions. Uddhava recognized Radharani by the seriousness of her condition, and that very same condition is always felt by Gora. Therefore, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami has written,
It's not that hard, it won't bite you. Radhikara bhava jaichi Uddhava darshani, say bhava mata prabhu rahi ratri dine. It's very sweet, actually. Anyway, go ahead.
just as Radhika went mad at the sight of Uddhava, so Lord Chaitanya was very much obsessed day and night with the madness of separation.
So again, this is Guru Maharaj commenting how this 47th chapter is Brahma Ragit. This is the mood that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu takes on, because he's told the gopis, Napariyeham niravadya samyajam, that I don't know how to repay my debt to you. So what is that debt? If somebody's continually lent you money, and one day you borrow 5 cents, and then another day you borrow $1, and then another day you borrow $5,000, you can come and say, well, here's the 5 cents that I owe you. But that's not, it's marked in terms of the highest amount, the complete amount. And the highest debt that Krishna is experiencing is the feelings of Radhika. And the height of her emotions is in this Brahma Ragit. And Guru Maharaj is describing. Go ahead,
Radharani is in a dying condition. She is going to die. And that same severe pang of separation from Krishna is always felt by Gauranga. Radhikara Bhava Murti Prabhura Antara Se Bhave Sukha Dukkha Ute Nirantara Shesha Lilaya Prabhura Krishna Viraha Unmada Brahma Maya Cheshta Ara Pralapa Maya Vada. The heart of Lord Chaitanya is the image of Sri Radhika's emotions. Thus feelings of pleasure and pain arise constantly therein. In the final portion of his pastimes, Lord Chaitanya was obsessed with the madness of separation from Lord Krishna. He acted in erroneous ways and talked deliriously.
Let's just stop there for one moment. Let me see if I can find something amongst my art collection here. So this is a very esoteric point that's being made, how Mahaprabhu is a mirror of the emotions of Srimati Radharani. And there's some beautiful paintings that illustrate that. I think I found some of them. Let's look here. Yeah, there's a couple different paintings. So this first one, which I'm going to show in just a moment here, I believe is a Pahari painting from Rajasthan. It looks roughly from 1800s. It's not so old. Let's show it on the screen here. And you can see Radha and Krishna looking in the mirror. and seeing the mirror of their emotions. And there's another painting which I like very much. Maybe I should have shown that a little longer. What's that, Prema?
It's okay. I'm just trying to see that why I don't see it.
Oh, let me show it again. Did everybody see that? You can see now? Okay. So you can see Krishna? Okay, good. So let me show you this other one. This is really, I like it even better. There it is. This is a more contemporary painting. I don't know the name of the artist. And you can see Srimati Radharani with her deer next to her, and she's looking into a mirror. And what does she see in the mirror? But she sees Krishna. At the same time, there's some other paintings I have too, which I couldn't find so easily. But there's almost a series where you see Krishna looking in the water, or Radharani looking in the water. And when Krishna's looking in the water, he sees Radharani. And Radharani looking in the water, she sees Krishna. It's a mirror of emotions. And this is an important subject matter that Guru Maharaj brings up, and which is also found in some of his art. Let's go back to Embankment of Separation here. I think this is it here. Yeah. You want to continue, Bana?
He who is Krishna.
Go ahead.
Separation from Krishna, because Radha Bhav is predominating. This is Vipralamba Bhav, the acute pang of separation. Mahaprabhu feels the same condition of separation from Krishna as Radharani, because Mahaprabhu is in Radha Bhav. In that mood, he is always crying.
How about Ujjwala? Would you like to read a little bit, Prabhuji?
Sure, Guru. Kahan Mora Prananata Murali Vadana, Kahan Karan Kahan Pan Vrajendra Nandana, Kahare Kahiba Keba Jane Moraduka, Vrajendra Nandana Vinu Pate Morabuka. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to express his mind in this way. Where is the Lord of my life who is playing his flute? What shall I do now? Where shall I go to find the son of Maharaj Nanda? To whom should I speak? Who can understand my disappointment? Without the son of Nanda Maharaj, my heart is broken. In this way, Mahaprabhu is crying exactly like Radharani. To whom shall I tell this tale of woe? Is there anyone who can feel such unbearable pain as I'm feeling in my heart? My heart is splitting, feeling the pangs of separation from Vrajendra Nandana, the son of Nanda Maharaj.
So beautiful, so beautiful. This is real poetry. This is the height of poetry. If you ask a common person on the street, what is the greatest poem or the greatest love story, probably a number of them will say Romeo and Juliet of Shakespeare. But if you read Lalita Madhav, Romeo and Juliet are nothing. Lalita Madhav is so amazing. You hear about the intense feelings of Srimati Radharani and Krishna, which culminate in Gaura Lila. So this is the first part of this chapter. Guru Maharaj now he's going on to another point. And I'd like to ask Chaitanya Prabhu if you can read from Never Given Before. We just heard his foundation of this chapter, which is the feelings of Radharani and the gopis in separation from Krishna. Can you see okay, Chaitanya Prabhu? If you're reading, we can't hear you. You're muted. That's what was the problem. That's why I was wondering. Still can't hear you.
Hare Krishna.
We got it now. That's
Okay.
Never Given Before.
Never given before. Joy hetu avatari lana bhakta gana, apane aswade prema nama sankirtana. Se dvare achandale kirtan sanchare, nama prema mala kanti parela samsare. With two intentions, the Lord appeared with his devotees and tasted the nectar of Prema with the congregational chanting of the holy name. Thus he spread kirtan even among the untouchables. He wove a wreath of holy name and Prema with which he garlanded the entire material world.
And this is the essence of this chapter, this Nama Prema Mala. What is that Nama Prema Mala? He'd be asking this question. Go ahead. Chiradatam Nijagupta Vitam.
Chiradatam Nijagupta Vitam Swaprema Namam Ritam Achyutara Apamaram Yo Vitartara Gaura Krishno Janebhyastam Aham Prapadye. The most beneficent Supreme Personal Godhead, known as Gaura Krishna, the superior to everyone, even the lowest of men, his own confidential treasury in the form of the nectar of love of himself and the holy name. This was never given to the people of any time before. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him. This Prema is Gupta Vitam, the hidden treasure of Goloka Vrindavan that has not been given until now. But now Gaura is distributing it to everyone here in the material world, even down to the lowest untouchables, Pamaras and Chandalas. How? By chanting his own name, Krishna Nam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That is not ordinary Nam. It is Prema Nam, the name that gives Prema. Mahaprabhu relishes the mellow and disputes it. But how did he weave a garland of Nam and Prem? And how did he garland one and all? How is it possible? This is the question, and its answer should be understood.
So, many devotees, they like to appreciate my Guru Maharaj. I've been thinking about him today in his Tirobhav. But I can tell you, if we want to appreciate someone, we should look to their heart. And we should look to what special things they contributed. And this was one of them. He was very, very ecstatic about speaking on this particular topic. Viren Prabhu, would you like to read from Essence of Prema?
Sure, Prabhu. Nami Sadhana, Essence of Prem. Nami Sadhana means, and Prem is Sadhya, end. Means an end. So how are these woven together to become a garland? Namara Phale Krishna Pada Prema Upajaya. If you chant the pure name, you will develop Krishna Prem. Chanting the holy name is the means, and Krishna Prem is the end. Sadhana and Sadhya are woven together, and the garland was made. How is it so? The Prem that Gauranga gives, do you think it is ordinary Prem? No, it is pure, spotless, Krishna Prem on the very highest platform. Someone is fortunate and gets this Prem. He kicks mukti and spits at the thought of it. Of the different types of Krishna Prem, the love found in Vrindavan is superior. In that Vraja Prem, there are 4 types: Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Of these 4, Gopi Prem is much better than the others. Gopi Prem also has varieties, of which the topmost is Radha Prem. This Prem is the hidden treasure, Nija Gupta Vitam. If someone is fortunate and gets this Radha Prem, all his desires are fulfilled. He achieves the supreme perfection of life.
So, Guru Maharaj speaks about Nam and Nami, and how there's no difference between the name of Krishna and Krishna himself. And she was mentioning, he speaks a little something also coming up here about Sadhya and Sadhana. And the amazing thing about this practice that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given is there's no difference between the Sadhya and the Sadhana. And Rupa Goswami, in his Pajavali, he describes this in his glorification of Nam. And he says, Tan me sadhyan sadhanam jivanam cha. And I think we were just citing this a few days ago. That the name is my jivan, it's my life. It's the goal of my life. And it's the means by which I'll attain the goal of my life. So Guru Maharaj commented elsewhere how when we chant Hare Krishna, we're chanting Hare in the vocative, which is Srimati Radharani. But our acharyas have indicated that that when the gopis are chanting, they're chanting Hari, they're chanting the name of Krishna. And they're chanting the same Maha Mantra that we're chanting, but for them, they're realizing Krishna's presence in that. So what's gone on in this chapter so far, to kind of summarize, is Guru Maharaj is speaking about from the 47th chapter, the 10th canto, 46th and 47th chapters, how Uddhava had met with the gopis and their feelings and separations, which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was experiencing, and how the height of that feeling was Srimati Radharani's feeling, intense feeling of separation, where she wanted to commit suicide. She couldn't tolerate living without Krishna. And then what happened at that time? Let's look back here a little bit. At that time, he sang a song sometimes, and here he's given a translation of it, that Radharani called for her companions and told them, take me to the bank of the Jamuna, put me underneath the Kadamba tree on the bank of the Jamuna, because that place, the Kadamba tree, that's where I used to meet with Krishna. That Jamuna reminds me of Krishna. You take some of that black mud, which reminds me of Krishna from the Jamuna, smear it all over my body, and then write the names of Sham, of Krishna, on my body, and then take some Tulsi Manjaris and offer them to those names, because Krishna and his name are non-different. And then all of you should sit around me, and when my life breath goes out, you should all shout, Hari, Hari, Hari. This is the kirtan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira. This is the kirtan of our sampradaya, of all the devotees gathered together and doing kirtan for the pleasure of Srimati Radharani in Braj. But that's a very closed door. We're beginning this chapter, how this is a closed door in Srivasanga. That kirtan that's going on, that's the kirtan that's going on in the kunjas of Vrindavan. That's requires the greatest adhikar to enter into. It's the most closed door. But the amazing thing is that that kirtan of Vrindavan has become the kirtan of Mayapur. And those gopis have taken male forms. They've come as Sri Damodar and Roy Ramananda and Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami. And in Braj Leela, they're doing kirtan for Srimati Radharani to ease her pangs of separation from Krishna. And because that name of Krishna is non-different from Krishna, then Radharani gets some solace, feeling her pangs of separation from Krishna, by their kirtan. And their kirtan is Prema Nam Kirtan. It's the most intense kirtan, because they're chanting out not only out of love for Krishna, but they're chanting out of intense love and feeling for Srimati Radharani as a service to Srimati Radharani, to help Radharani, to keep her from committing suicide, to keep her from dying. So that kirtan is the kirtan of our sampradaya. Krishna now has come as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the mood of Radha. He's feeling the same feelings that Radharani is experiencing. This is what Guru Maharaj is explaining here. And those gopis, they've come in male forms in Gaura Leela, and they're doing kirtan. And what are they doing? The amazing thing in this Gaura Leela kirtan, it's not just the gopis doing kirtan, but those personalities, those gopis who come in male forms, they're engaging their followers, who are engaging their followers, who are engaging their followers. And this is the Prema Nam Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Not everyone understands it in the same way. For some persons in Jagannath Puri, perhaps at the Rath Yatra, it's just ecstatic, and they're feeling separation from Krishna, and they're crying and chanting like that. For those devotees in South India that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced and gave Krishna prema, and they started chanting, and they went, and someone else would get embraced by them, and they would get Krishna prema. They're thinking this is love of God, this is the topmost thing. And it's a fact. But Chirada Vitam Nija Gupta Vitam, this Gupta Vitam, this hidden purpose is there in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that he's come to give this topmost thing, which is this Manjari Bhav. The Manjaris, they're having this mood to save the life of Srimati Radharani by bringing Radha and Krishna together. And therefore, Narottam Das Thakur, in one of his classic songs, he sings it, Radha Krishna Pranamo Yugala Kishore, Jivane Marani Gati Nahi Armor. That my goal of my life is to bring Radha and Krishna together. I have no other goal in life or in death. And that's the mood of the Sakhi Manjaris. So that's inconceivably high. And we have no business, we have no adhikar to even touch that. But the amazing thing is that Krishna, coming in the mood of Radha, he's become Mahabhadanyaya avatar, and he's giving this topmost thing which hasn't been given in such a long time. And he's giving it through the form of this holy name, through this ecstatic kirtan, this kirtan of our sampradaya. And this is why in our line we chant the Hare Krishna mantra. I'm writing an article right now for our next magazine about Nityananda Prabhu, and we're raising the question that if Nityananda Prabhu is so merciful, then why don't we do Nitai Bhajan? Why don't we write the names of Nitai and chant Nitai, 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 or Nitai Gaur on our beads? Why is Rupa Goswami and our acharyas giving us this Hare Krishna mantra? Oh, they're cheating us. They're giving us something lesser. A very foolish person might think like that. But we hear that the Lord Nityananda, he's come to give that topmost thing. Nitai Kinami Nechi Re. Jagannath Das Babaji, sometimes in his kirtan, he would start crying and jumping up and down and screaming, Nitai Kinami Nechi Re, Nitai Kinami. That my Nitai, what name have you brought? This is Nityananda Prabhu came to give this name, this Hare Krishna mantra, because Nitai has come, he's a combined form, just as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta explains this, just as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combined form of Radha and Krishna, so also is Nityananda Prabhu, the combined form of Lord Balaram and Ananga Manjari, the younger sister of Srimati Radharani. And as Ananga Manjari, as Balaram, he's come to help give the Yuga Dharma, and he has no entrance so much into the deeper aspects of Gaura Lila, just as Balaram has no entrance into the intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna. But Ananga Manjari does. And that aspect of Balaram is there, and that's the aspect giving this Prema Nam Sankirtan. So I want to stop there. Maybe we'll have a third session on this and finish off there. I don't want to just read, but I'd like to have some discussion also from the devotees. And oh, Hemanti, we missed you. Are you there? I think you came a little bit late. I didn't see. I would have asked you to read. But I think, as I mentioned, we'll just go ahead and stop here now. And Viren Prabhu, do you have any reflections, comments, questions you want to share? Go ahead with that right now.
Just something that I'm thinking about, Prabhu. So
I'm thinking about one other thing. If we could see your smiling face, and we'd all feel so blissful.
Okay. Can you see that? Is the video on?
No, it looks very impersonal. I just see black. Oh, wait a minute. There you are. Okay.
All right. Sorry, Prabhu. Yeah, I think I want to hear this class again. This whole thing of Prema Nam Sankirtan is quite deep, and it's something I really want to absorb and digest. But the one thought going through my mind, I quite liked how you mentioned that when Chandravali went to Mathura, and when she was saying Radhe, 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 and she took that letter with her. I'm curious to know, what happened with that letter. I mean, because Krishna,
the letter.
because Krishna, we kind of hear that, there's. So I'm very, I think.
Okay, well, let me tell you a little more of the story then. Krishna calls out. He says, "Who's calling the name of my beloved? Show yourself." And then Chandravali comes out from behind the pillar. And it's not exactly explained how, but Krishna doesn't recognize her, although she looks somewhat familiar. And Krishna asked her, he said, "Where are you from? And how do you know about Radharani?" And Chandravali says, well, and he says, and who are you? What's your name? And Chandravali says, actually, I don't remember where I'm from. And I don't remember my name. And Krishna said, what do you mean you don't remember where you're from or what your name is? And Chandravali says, I think that has something, that there's some mystic power or something with this place, Mathura, that people come here and they forget who they are and they forget where they're from. Just like you've forgotten about these things. And then she didn't exactly say that yet. And she said that I've come because my princess, the most beautiful woman in all the three worlds, has sent me because there's someone here in Mathura who broke their promise and cheated her, and they owe something to her. And I've come to get that. And Krishna then said, well, you tell me what that is. And she said, well, how do I know you're really serious? What if it's one of your family members or something? And then Krishna says, even if it's me, myself, if I'm in debt, I promise as the king, I promise I will repay this. I'll have to do this thing. And then Chandravali shows this document. You remember this? You recognize your name here? You remember what happened? And then Krishna's, oh. He says, so how you've forgotten our Srimati Radharani? And then Chandravali says, I'll know you'll remember her if you manifest the complexion of Srimati Radharani. And then Gaura Lila begins. Krishna does like that. That's the essence of Divya Mata. It's a very amazing book.
Wow, that is sweet, Prabhu. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, please bless us that we can. That's not my very next. I've got 2 or 3 projects, not even counting the website, which Bana Biharni is like furious with me, and she's like writing angry letters to me almost every day and chastising me. Not exactly, but I'm not forgetting about the website. We've got the website, and I've got to work on Embankment separate. We've got a lot of projects right now. And then our first book, what I'm going to get to, is going to be a book about the Gita, which introductions to the Gita from different personalities, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Sridhar Swami, and different, my Guru Maharaj, Prabhupada, many different personalities. And then when we finish that, which that book is just in the editing stage, it's mostly ready, then I'm going to go on to Divya Mata. So please bless us for him,
Prabhu. Thanks.
So, Himanti, you have some comment here. Can I read it out? Do you want to read your comment? Maybe we can see you, then everybody will feel much happier, though.
Hare
There.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So thank you for this wonderful class. My comment was that to hear more of the inner mood of Radharani is it's such confidential and esoteric subject matter, as you mentioned, Madhavananda Prabhu. So this really did feel like Maharaj's mercy upon us, really a gift that I don't feel I deserve, but somehow I got a way in and just getting some amazing treasures on each class. Yeah, I also liked when you explained why we need to know this, and that was to understand Lord Chaitanya better. And I think from the passages today, I got some sense of the intensity of that feeling of separation that Lord Chaitanya feels.
Actually, all these things basically are there already in Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srila Prabhupada's books. Why is it that so much of the time I find it seems really revolutionary to devotees when we express this? I would suggest that the reason is because we're so absorbed in ourself and our bodily conception of life that it's very, very difficult for us to really get our head into understanding the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the heart of Srimati Radharani. And Guru Maharaj, therefore, he's giving us such a beautiful poetic explanation, and he's helping us. It's a kind of heart surgery that open our hearts up that we can understand this subject matter. So thank you, Himanti. You must be very happy that Guru Maharaj sharing.
Thank you, Prabhu. And I had one question, Prabhu.
Sorry?
I had one question.
Yeah.
You mentioned Lord Chaitanya in the passages we read. He gives the highest prem. So does Lord Chaitanya give us Radha prem?
He came to give Radha Prema, but it's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, so Prema Namamrita Atudara, that he came to give his own Prema, Swaprema, and also in his prayer of Sri Damodar Goswami, that some Shiradi Tamani Jagupta Vitam Suprema Namamrita Atudara, Palmam Yovita Tara. No, that's not the verse. It's a similar verse though. Anarpita Chirim Chira. Thank you. I knew you would know. Anarpita Chirim Chira Karuna Avatena Kalo Samart Paitam Anujula Rasam Swabhakti Sriyam. It's Swabhakti Sriyam. It's Unata Ujula Rasa, which means Madhurja Ras. But of that, it's the essence of that Madhurja Ras. What is the essence of that Madhurja Ras? Well, the highest part of that Madhurja Ras is Radha Bhav. But it's more than just Radha Bhav that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give. Because Krishna has become so eager, he doesn't only want to taste Radharani's mood, he wants to serve Radharani. He wants to become one of Radharani's maidservants, because that's the topmost ecstasy. And this is what our Goswamis have come to give. And this is why Rupa Goswami is picked out. Otherwise, why do we say that we're Rupa Nugas? Why not describe ourselves as Nityananda Nugas? He's the most merciful. He's even more merciful than Mahaprabhu. Or Advaita Nugas, because Advaita Charya brought Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Or Gadadhar Nugas, Gadadhar Pandit is Radharani. Or Srivasa Nugas, he's in charge of all the devotees. Why, in particular, do we mention this junior devotee, who's not one of the Panchatattva members, who didn't have near as much association with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the members of the Panchatattva? Why do we give so much stress on this young boy at the time, Rupa Goswami? Why are we Rupa Nu? Because Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishta, he understands the mind of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What does it mean to understand the mind of Mahaprabhu? He understands the mind of Mahaprabhu because he knows the mind of Radharani. Because Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari. Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhisham Stapitam Yena Bhutale, and therefore Stapitam, he's established the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's not just, it's Premanam Sankirtan, but it's not only that Prema. It's not just that ecstatic love, but it's this ecstatic love with the desire to render service to Srimati Radharani in this way. And it's a very confidential thing. This is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give. And this is why Mahaprabhu is Mahavadanyaya avatar, and why he's so amazing. He's so completely amazing. And if you just say that, yeah, Mahaprabhu is really kind and he came to give vegetarian restaurants and teach about reincarnation to everybody, no, we're not satisfied with that. There's something much, much deeper. When we hear about our Rasa Acharya Rupa Goswami, our Prayojana Acharya Raghunath Das Goswami, and their realizations about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and how Mahaprabhu is the highest form of Krishna, there's some very, very deep purport to it. And this is what Guru Maharaj is trying to bring out in Embankment and Separation. And he wanted to do a service. He wanted to serve Srila Prabhupada on Prabhupada's order, to help devotees to understand these higher topics, to help give respect to Srila Prabhupada's movement, because he was living in India. He knew many scholars, many Gaudiya Math devotees. He once commented to us that he had met many disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, but he didn't feel they were his guru. And he saw that many times those devotees didn't respect enough Srila Prabhupada, or Prabhupada's movement. So Guru Maharaj, for these reasons, wanted to do this. He wanted to uphold the prestige of Prabhupada's mission. He wanted to preach to the preachers and show that Prabhupada gave everything. Is that okay, Himanti?
Yeah, thank you. Prabhu really blowed my mind. Thank you so much.
Great. I'm really happy. We love to blow people's minds. We're trying to blow our mind. Thank you very much for taking part today. Hare Krishna. And what about Mukunda, the wise, sagacious, and rustic Mukunda? Can we get to hear something from you today?
Hold on 1 second, Prabhuji. Sorry about that. You're looking for my Sahaja opinion? Okay.
You look like a DJ with your headphones on. You look like a DJ at a rock and roll party or something, you know?
Yeah, I could pass for that very easily, though. Prabhuji, today's class, I must say that I just kind of skipped a few heartbeats, really, because, last week we spoke about this whole thing about Prema Sankirtan, Prema Nam Sankirtan. And I also mentioned, what is this Prema Nam Sankirtan? How do we understand this thing? What do we make of this,
Mm-hmm.
And I think today in class, we actually answered that question. You've given us a better idea of what it is. And I must admit that, my heart just raced a little when I heard that, especially the part where you mentioned that, the gopis, the groves of Vrindavan, they were doing the kirtan. And this became kirtan of Mayapur, which is behind closed doors. I must say, I need to really, really meditate on this tonight. And I think I'm probably going to sleep with a smile on my face because really, this is like just, wow. I skipped a few heartbeats when I heard this. And I'm so thankful for that, Prabhu. Really, it had answered the question that I had last week. And I think Krishna Balaram also had that particular type of, doubt about what is this really. So I think this is clearly answered. I mean, it's something so way out. It's something so inconceivable, but it's so beautiful. It's yes, Prabhuji.
If Rupa Goswami and the Acharyas have described different types of prayers, and one of them is Dainya, one of them is Prarthana, just to open up our hearts, make an appeal. Another is Dainya Bhav, to express some deep feelings of unworthiness. But unless we understand what gift is being offered to us by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can't really understand that Dainya Bhav. We can understand and we say, oh, Prabhu, I'm really fallen, Prabhu. Let me touch your feet. Let me take the remnants off your plate. And we roll together and we wrestle and we have some fun at the Sunday feast program or something like devotees do. And it's kind of cute and sweet. But we don't really understand. And we don't really deeply feel that until we begin to understand this thing. So it's so very, very, very important that we understand something about what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is offering us and what he's come to give, and how I don't have that thing. As Gurma said in another place, he came to give this and you were just sleeping and you didn't get it.
Yeah, it's so true, Prabhu. Sure. And I just have one more question, Prabhu. Okay. We spoke about Mahaprabhu, about Srimati Radharani coming to this point of mrityu or death, such intense separation from Krishna that, even giving up her life to that point of intensity. And when Mahaprabhu came to Vrindavan, did he experience that same type of intensity? Because he practically stayed just, for a month or two, I don't, a very short period in Vrindavan.
Isn't that?
And then he left.
Why did he
left? Yes, and then he left Vrindavan.
Right.
So where was the intensity more? Was the intensity in Puri or was the intensity in Vrindavan?
Very good question. Wonderful. Thank you so much. The question he's asking, Krishna Kundan, I'm going to paraphrase it again, is that Srimati, we hear the height of Radharani's feelings is the desire to commit suicide. And he's asking, did Mahaprabhu experience that desire when he went to Vrindavan? And how is it in Vrindavan he didn't seem to experience the height of this ecstasy? And why did he leave Vrindavan? And that's something some of you know I like to talk about quite a lot. Yeah. And where did he go? Why? First of all, when he went to Vrindavan, where did he stay? He stayed at Imli Tal, which is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's favorite place. And Imli Tal is very much like the mood of Jagannath Puri. It's a place of separation and a place of union. It's a place where previously in Dwapara Yuga, when Srimati Radharani became a little man, a little sulky, she left the Ras Leela. Then Krishna left all the gopis. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about this in Gitabali in one beautiful song, how Krishna left all the gopis and went searching for Radharani. And it's a very important song in terms of Gaur Leela, which we're going to come to in a moment. So Krishna left the Ras Leela, left all those gopis, went searching for Radha. And where did he go? He was searching through the kunjas on the bank of the Jamuna from Vamsivat. He came downstream until finally he came to the place known as Imli Tal. And there's an Imli tree, tall as a tree, Imli's tamarind tree. He sat under that tamarind tree and he began to cry in separation from Radha. Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. And an amazing thing happened at that time. His Shama Varna became golden, like the color of the Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha. So 500 years ago, the same Krishna now is in the mood of Radha. He goes to the same place in Vrindavan, and this is where, according to Bhakti Ratnakar, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in Vrindavan. He sat underneath the same tamal tree, only now his mood is different. He's Krishna, but he's in the mood of Radha. And so he's not calling out the name of Radhe, Radhe, as Krishna did, but rather he's calling out Krishna, Krishna. And he has a golden complexion, the color of Madanakya Mahabhava Mayi Radha, the color of Radharani's emotions. So when he begins calling out Radhe, Radhe, an amazing thing happens, and Gaurasundar becomes Shyamasundar. His Gauravarna, his golden complexion, disappeared because he's thinking so deeply about Krishna, and the blackish complexion appeared. Why is this? Because the mood of Radha is so deep in Vrindavan. The mood of Radha is so powerful that when Radharani begins to do kirtan in Vrindavan, Krishna has to come there. And this is the purport of Gopal, Jiva Goswami's Gopal Champu. Krishna does come there. And he comes in a vision to Radha, and they're actually together, and that's a very deep thing. But at that time, Mahaprabhu thinks, oh, I wanted to taste Radharani's feelings of separation, which are more intense than her feelings of union. And when she's feeling separation, then Krishna can't keep away here in Vrindavan, and I can't keep away. I become Krishna. And therefore, if I become Krishna, I can't taste the mood of Radharani. So he has a problem. He understands that the only place where he can taste the feelings of Radha are in Vrindavan. But he can't taste the feelings of Radha in Vrindavan because it's a place of Milan. So his dilemma is he has to go to a place which is two opposites in one container. It's Vrindavan, but it's not Vrindavan. And so he leaves Vrindavan and he goes to Jagannath Puri. And it's there in Jagannath Puri, which is Gupta Vrindavan, the hidden chamber of Vrindavan, which is not Vrindavan. You don't see Radhakund and Shamakund and Govardhan Hill, but you do see them. In his ecstasy, he sees Chatak Parvat as Govardhan Hill. He sees the ocean as a Jamuna. He sees Jagannath Vallabha Gardens as a Vrindavan forest. It is Vrindavan, but it's not Vrindavan. It's a place of separation. And it's there that he's feeling the mood of Radha, and sometimes he wants to commit suicide. He's feeling the topmost ecstasy of Srimati Radharani in separation. He couldn't do that in Vrindavan. So to do that, he had to go to a place which is two opposites in one container, Vrindavan, but not Vrindavan. And that's Jagannath Puri. And that's why I like Jagannath Puri very much.
Very well.
And that's a conclusion we'll get from Embankment of Separation as we continue along too. Is that okay? Just a little lightweight.
Yes. Thank you so much. Wow. That's really great. Awesome. Thank you.
That's the $64,000 question, as we say, the $108,000 question. Yes, thank you so much. And Bana Biharani, did you get anything today? Would you like to share something? Were you able to stay awake?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. I'm happy to hear that.
Um, I've been thinking about this kata reminded me of something I've been thinking about, which is kind of why I took up chanting or joined Krishna consciousness. And I was thinking that, I was suffering so much in my life that I just didn't want to live anymore. And this seemed like something that would make me happy or help me. And lately I'm just thinking about that and how it's not, it doesn't feel like a good reason actually to chant, is because I want to be happy or to really relieve my suffering. And it was like, it's very beautiful to hear about this highest kind of version of this, that devotees want to be with Krishna and they want to serve Krishna, and that's their only happiness. So I'm feeling maybe a little discouraged, intimidated also, but I'm just thinking about chanting and my reasons for that. Yeah.
There's a great paradox in spiritual life, which we find amongst some of the great Sufi masters, we find amongst some of the great Christian mystics and spiritualists throughout the world. And that paradox is the very intimate relationship between suicide or the desire for suicide and spiritual life. And although sometimes our acharyas have described, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Radhavartman Chandrika describes that Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata, he says, you can read them if you want to. But it's kind of a Tatastha literature, not the most important thing. But the Bhagavatam, that's the most important thing. And our Goswami literatures, that's the most important thing. Why does he say such a thing about Bhagavad Gita, which is the number one golden hit throughout history? Well, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is giving many things, basic dharmic things about the nature of the soul and God and our relationship, but he also gives some things in a kind of hidden way. And he tells us to Arjuna that I spoke to you things which are guyam, guyatamam, guyatimam, the confidential, more confidential, the most confidential. And the most confidential things, he says, are mamana bhavamad bhakto, sarva dharmam prityaga, that you should become my devotee, always think of me, surrender everything to me. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, our acharyas, my Guru Maharaj, elaborately have explained this, that Krishna thought to himself that I'm a theoretical speaker. I've told this in the Bhagavad Gita, that you should think of me always and be my devotee, that you should surrender everything to me, but I haven't given an example. And without an example, it's not going to work. And so he had to come again in the mood of Radha, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in that verse, Sarva Dharmam Parityaga, what is the essence of that? Krishna is talking about suicide. And in fact, the entire Bhagavad Gita is premised on suicide. If you contemplate on the first chapter, we have that saying in America, you guys are probably familiar with, death by cop. There's some people, I have a friend in Los Angeles, a devotee, who has some mental illness, and one day I've told this story a few times, he went to the Culver City police station with his hand in his pocket, and he looked a little strange, and he had his hand in his pocket, and the police said, hey, take your hand out of your pocket. He looked a little menacing to them, and he wouldn't do it. And the police officer pulled his gun out and said, take your hand out of your pocket, and he wouldn't do it. He kept advancing toward them, and finally the police shot and killed him, and he had nothing in his pocket. But his desire was to be killed by a police officer, death by cop. So that's what Arjuna does in the first chapter of the Gita, which is Bishad Yoga, the yoga of lamentation, the yoga of suicide. It culminates finally where Arjuna says, forget it, I'm putting my weapons aside, let them kill me, unarmed and unresisting. I'm just here, let them destroy me. And Bishidantam idam vakyam uvachamadu sudana. In the next chapter, the second chapter, it said that this Vishad of Arjuna, this is the basis of the Bhagavad Gita, and this desire of Arjuna to commit suicide like this is what provoked Madhusudan, Krishna, to speak the Bhagavad Gita, which culminates again in Krishna's words, Sarva Dharmam Parityagya, which means give up everything, give up your Dharma, which means we find in the Bhagavatam in the 46th chapter of the 10th canto, includes Lokik Dharma, the Dharma of the body, and that just give up everything. An example of that is the gopis. That's suicide. So you were feeling like that too. And many of us, I just don't want to be in this world anymore. I want something else. And that's a bona fide desire. Arjuna's desire is something which is given for us. It's not really for him. But he's giving us that emotion to show us how we can come to the Lord through this bishad, through this lamentation. It's a very, very esoteric and very important thing. So if you feel bad about that, that's good. We should feel bad. That's the whole point. You're doing good. Okay. Is that good? You finished?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Ujjwala, do you want to share anything?
Prabhu, it's just been so much to absorb with this session. I've really appreciated just being here. I guess the thing that stuck to me the most is just appreciating the gift of perspective that we've given. And you touched on that multiple times as you were kind of reflecting on other people's reflections. But Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj has he's really churned out a particular thing here in the perspective of Radha Bhav and the Kirtan of our Sampradaya, as you were saying. And I was just appreciating the gift that we've been given by Srila Prabhupada, by Maharaj, by Rupa Goswami, and how really it is just something that needs to be deeply contemplated, that it's such a great fortune, because I had no other way of accessing anything like this, even if I came to spiritual life in a more general way or through another path. And yeah, just the appreciation of the gift that we've been given, and how now somehow or other I have access to this, and waking up to that reality and understanding the importance of it and really the gravity of it. Yeah, I need more of that in my life. So
this goes unlimitedly also when we speak about the kirtan of our sampradaya and the ramifications of it, the implications in our own lives, in our own book distribution, our own activities that we're doing. And the more that we understand them, the deeper we appreciate Srila Prabhupada's movement. And it changes our perspective, as you're pointing out, which is what our bhajan is all about, changing our perspective, changing our modifying our desire. Whereas before, as we spoke in our last session, previously, in Satya Yuga even, the rishis were chanting the holy names. They knew about kirtan. Mm-hmm. And in other Kali Yugas, there was kirtan, but not this kind of kirtan. Not kirtan in the mood of Radharani. And what particular mood of Radharani? There's so many moods of Radha. So we should understand that. I feel very blessed. Thank you very much, Uji. You know, one thing, Ujjwala Prabhu has been studying some Sanskrit, and I was appreciating your pronunciation of the Bengali when you're reading, and it's such a nice thing. When we meet other Vaishnavas, which we all will, sooner or later, if we haven't yet, in other lines, or especially if you're in India, and they hear you and you can recite Sanskrit in a nice way, it really moves them very, very deeply, very deeply. And it's a very beautiful thing to do for Srila Prabhupada's movement. And it's actually not that hard, is it, Ujjwala? It's really not that difficult a thing to learn to pronounce a little bit something. I mean, reading Devanagari is a lot harder, and learning Sandhi and so many, there's just different steps above that. But just basic pronunciation, Prabhupada wanted that. And it's very sweet. So I was just appreciating your contribution to that today, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you.
And how about from the big Krishna Balaram Prabhu, our sweet Krishna Balaram? Krishna Balaram's kind of dangerous because you get around him and you get cavities. He's so sweet.
Well, I was also appreciating when Ujjwala Prabhu was reading, and I was thinking, wow, that sounds really good. But also in a similar tone, I was thinking that, we've been around Krishna consciousness for many years, and I think many of the devotees from South Africa here, we are all kind of around the same time we came to Krishna consciousness. except for Viren was around from the 70s. But I was thinking, Prabhu, that we are so fortunate to have what you're giving us right now. And of course, we wouldn't have the experience of hearing it from somebody who had it firsthand, from Govinda Maharaj as an example. So thank you very much. Although Srila Prabhupada has given us everything, and we can say that sometimes it's not so accessible, at least in the way it's been presented here, and going into the understandings of the philosophy, etc. And of course, I didn't have much time to think today because, in the same sentiment as others mentioned today, there was just no time to think. It was just flowing, and there's just so much nice things that has been said. So thank you, Prabhu, and thank you for your time and Mother Krishna Kun's time as well. We really appreciate it. Yeah, it was mind-blowing today. Good.
It's not anything for me. It's my Guru Maharaj. It doesn't belong to me. But also this is the purpose of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. Krishna wanted to taste Radharani's mood, but he also wanted to taste the mood of service to Radharani that those gopis and sakhis were experiencing when Radharani was feeling these intense pangs of separation from Krishna. He wanted to help with it. He wanted to know what that was like, what that sangha, that most intimate sangha, you can't imagine, the most intimate sangha in all the universe. Srimati Radharani feeling separation from Krishna and wanting to die in separation from Krishna, and her most intimate sakhis and manjaris coming together and doing kirtan to keep her alive. That's the most intimate sangha in the whole universe. And that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give. And that's the purpose of our movement. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada in Krishna book, he says the purpose of this Hare Krishna movement is to create a place where people can come together and they can hear and chant about Krishna. And we want to do this in a very intimate way. But we hear in the Gita, after Krishna says Sarva Dharma Parityagya, then he goes on to one of my favorite verses. He says, Idam te narapaskaya. Now, one thing he says, Arjuna, Idam te narapaskaya, na bhakte kadachna chashashushave vacham. Don't speak this, vacham, don't speak this Bhagavad Gita to persons who are not apaskaya, who have no austerity, who are not bhaktas, who are not devotees, who are not ready to render service, and who are envious. So if you think about those negative things, the opposite of those is the sangha that we want. If we have a sangha where devotees are dedicated, that's the essence of austerity. They're dedicated, they're willing to give some time for something. They're devotees, they're devoted. They're ready to render service. They help in different ways, serving the message, serving the people, giving a message. And they're free from envy. In that kind of sangha, that's the purpose of the Krishna conscious movement, to come together in that kind of sangha, which is the Gambhira. And this is what I like to call the Gambhira Bhajan Pranali, the system of bhajan which Mahaprabhu gives in the Gambhira. Maybe we'll speak something more about that in our next session too. Anyway, thank you, Krishna Balaram Prabhu. I really, it's been so nice having your association over the years and walking a little with you in Krishna consciousness. You have a very beautiful heart. Krishna. And Ujjwala Rasigya is there. Oh my God. We had somebody who snuck in the door, just like the brahmachari who snuck in.
Hare Krishna, my pranams to you, Prabhu, to all the devotees. I'm sorry, Prabhu. I'm so excited. I didn't think I was.
This person snuck in and is not supposed to be here in the Sangha.
Oh, I didn't realize that, Prabhu. Are you kidding? Or is that okay to be here?
Okay, so let me explain it, because there's only a couple of you know who this lady is. This is Ujjwala Rasigya. She's a doctor. She's from South India, but she lives in North Carolina, a strange place in America. And she helps people's bodies, and she also helps devotees' hearts. And she's very much into the holy name. And somehow she usually takes part in our other Sangha, but she snuck in the door and she was hiding in the Sangha. And now we've caught you. and we're going to have to demand that you share something. Do you have any reflections you want to share?
Yes, Prabhu. Again, my pranams to you all. I'm excited because I didn't know I was going to just show up here myself, because it has been my dream to be a part of this Sangha in this Katha. And I thought when you said 1 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m., I'm like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., it may not be possible. But somebody just texted me saying that this Katha is going on. I'm like, now going on? What am I doing here? I want to be there. So I had no second thought, and I'm just here, Prabhu. Now I'm starting to think. But as I just entered, when you said, this is Gambhira Sangha, I'm like, yes, this is why I'm here. Even if it's for a moment, I wanted to hear that. That's all for now, Prabhu.
Okay. I just noticed, I didn't know how much you'd heard, but I just saw your name pop up. And Ujjwal Rasiga, she's very dear to us. And she comes and spends time with us in Jagannath Puri, even when she's not too angry with us anyway. And it's good to see you today.
Pleasure, Prabhu. Thank you.
So we want to turn to our eternal temple president now, Chaitanya Prabhu, and see if he has any final words of wisdom or reflections or questions.
I'm not sure if eternal temple president is a good thing.
You don't want to be an eternal temple president?
I have my break at the moment, which is going good, Prabhu. My thoughts were, my immediate thing went to the chanting again, and that's just primarily because, we do this every day, but often it's just the mechanical, dutiful type of chanting that ends up happening. And as much, we don't, I don't think from my case, I don't recall enough, or I don't kind of revisit the fact of why we're doing this chanting. And like today's description of it being the sadhana and the prema being as the sadhya is, I think, it's really key. Always personally, and in many things that I try to do, I always try to have the goal in mind. But often in chanting some of the other, we don't always put that goal, so it ends up becoming that mechanical chanting. I think for me, it will just be a bit more focus around some of that to understand that the weave between the two, so that Garland comes true for me as well. The other element that there's so much of sweetness here, and at the moment I'm reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, but I'm surprised at some of the contrast that ends up happening again. And at the moment I'm reading on Junior Haridas and Damodar Pandit, and the interactions that happen there, and it's happening here in the Ancha Leader. So I'm a little, baffled by how does it fit in Lord Chaitanya's pastime. He's rejecting Junior Haridas Thakur in such a emphatic way for something that seemed very trivial according to discussions in Chaitanya Charitamrita, but he has such a, I can say, strong way to deal with somebody like that. And it seems strange when we have all these amazing devotees around Lord Chaitanya, but you have an interaction like this at the same time. And if you have a word or two on that one.
Well, I don't know, but one thing I was thinking about when you were just talking about the importance of chanting, I was thinking on some of that, how sometimes in our society, we have a lot of japa retreats, and I've tried to take part in some of those, and I'm saying this slowly because I really don't at all want to be negative, because it's so important. I appreciate them very much. But if you have any kind of retreat, kirtan, japa, whatever you want to call it, harikatha, and you don't follow these principles that I just mentioned, idam te narapaskaya nabhakte kadachana chashashushabe vacham nachamam yo visuyati. If people don't have the good qualities, the opposite side of these negative ones, then all that you have, all you're going to be able to do is tell people, keep your back straight when you chant, do some breath exercise, try to imagine this or that, because you're not so intimate with them. And this is what you're pointing out in Gaura Lila too. Gaura Lila is such a very, very intimate thing. And if we give up the opportunity to enter into Gaura Lila, which is going on today, Prabhupada says, if we give up that opportunity by slamming the door shut in the form of committing offense to the Vaishnavas, just declaring ourselves to be the judge of the Vaishnavas, that we can't experience that Gaura Lila. We'll experience something, some kind of religiosity, some piety of chanting the holy names, but it's going to be soured. The milk has become soured by our offenses to the holy name. So it's such a thing we have to be so very, very careful about. And I think we have to cultivate that. I see, I'm picking on you, and when I say the eternal temple president, what a terrible thing. I did that to Swavas once, who was my temple president for many years in Los Angeles, and I saw him and his wife Tadit in Mayapur a few years ago, and I said, Swavas, I said, the eternal temple president. And his wife, like all the blood drained from her face, and she said, please, don't curse us, Prabhu. We don't want that. But you're the eternal temple president in another sense, that you were doing that service in such a nice way for Prabhupada's mission to help so many general people. But now I feel like you've gone a little further and you're helping to create small sanghas with intimate devotees. And really, that's what our movement is about. It starts behind closed doors in Sriva Sangha. It ends behind closed doors in the Gambhira. And we have to try to figure out how to get in one of those rooms. Have our own little sweet private Sangha. And so you're doing this so nicely, Prabhu. I really appreciate it. Such a beautiful devotee. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Prabhu.
Okay, so anybody else here in the room want to share anything? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and stop.
It was very important for me.
Okay, can you hear Krishna Kun? Okay, she says don't turn the camera. I'll get in trouble.
Right here.
For those of you who are married, understand that, but she'll speak louder. Go ahead.
The most important thing for me today, I think, was
Can you hear okay?
that
Okay.
if we want to appreciate someone, we should look and try to understand what is in their heart. And that comes out in what they speak, and how our Gurudev would speak so much about this Nama Prema Mala. Nama Prema Mala Ganta. So that was very important for me. The other thing is what I marked was this intimate association of Mahaprabhu's associates, and several places in Embankment of Separation, which means during the course of several classes that our Gurudev spoke on these topics, Gurudev mentions it, that at one point, for me it's chapter 5 actually, where our Gurudev specifically says that this is the most important aspect of Gaura Lila, how this intimate association with Mahaprabhu's associates is there. And I'm sure that in other places he said other things, but at that point this is what he emphasized the most from all of Gaura Lila.
If we're not nourished deeply in this way, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami speaks in the end of Madhya Lila that if we don't taste and relish this Gaura Lila in this way, then things become shallow. We become shallow. It becomes kind of a religion, maybe kind of a club of friends who are doing some pious thing.
Of that.
And then we end up stopping our own personal bhajan, or our society becomes weak. Were you going to say, remind you of something?
Yeah, is it Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur? You can correct me. One of our acharyas say that even in the angas of bhakti, there is no taste
It's Vishwanath,
if it's not in sangha, in intimate sangha. So that's what I was remembering.
She's pointing out that even the angas of bhakti, if they're performed, Vishwanath says, if they're not done in devotee association, there's no sweetness in them. There's no taste. That taste comes in devotee association. And what is a devotee association? With all respect, it doesn't just mean going to the Sunday feast program or even to the morning program with the devotees. That's there, and we do that as a service. But and it may be there, but ultimately it means in a Gambhira way. It means in a way like Sriva Sangha, but with a very intimate group of devotees.
And just one last thing. I love this picture that you brought in at the very end in the question and answers, that if we refuse, like we give up the opportunity to enter Gora Lila by slamming the door in the form of committing offenses. Just this picture. Then we are losing such a wonderful opportunity that doesn't come. It doesn't even come epically yoga. It just comes when our Swayam Bhagavan Gora comes to give Prema Nam Sankirtan.
And we become the most miserable, unfortunate persons.
Misfortunate.
Yeah. So I'm going to post this picture again, and we'll go ahead and finish.
I love the paintings.
Yeah, this is the last painting here. Radharani looking in the mirror and seeing Krishna, which is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the mirror of emotions. Okay, thank you all so much. I feel really blessed to have this on today. And we'll be here next week. Next week's going to be a little challenge for me. I'm planning on doing it. But next week we have a sangha with some devotees
From 4:30 in UK.
In UK. And we're going to finish about 10 minutes before this is going to start. But I still think we'll be able to do it. So we should be fine.
Oh, I want to thank Ujjwala Prabhu for his comments. I thought it was really good. The perspective thing.
Yeah, that was very wise. So thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Binda ki jai, Go Premanand.
Yes,